Welcome to X Confessions Unlocked, where lies, betrayal, and truth collide. Kindly subscribe so you don't miss any of this. We share new stories daily. Stick around and unlock the drama. Now, let's get into today's story. He passed away a few years ago. It was very sudden. I'm sorry, sweetheart. That's what my daughter told me her mother said when she asked about me. Not, he moved away, not, we don't talk anymore, not even, he's not coming. No. My ex-wife told our only daughter that I was dead, buried, gone, just to keep me from being at her wedding. My name is Michael, I'm 52 now, and for the first time in years, I'm finally breathing without bitterness. But back then, that one sentence cracked something inside me I didn't even know was still whole. A little context, my ex-wife's name is Rachel. We were together for 13 years, married for 10, and the first half of our relationship was actually beautiful. We met in college. I was a broke journalism major who wore second-hand flannels and wrote terrible poetry. She was in law school, laser-focused, ambitious, sharp, in every way my opposite. That's probably what pulled us together at first. I brought her warmth and idealism. She brought me structure and ambition. It worked. For a while. Things started to shift after our daughter Maya was born. Rachel went full throttle into her legal career. She's now a very successful family lawyer, which is ironic. I supported her 100%, even when it meant sacrificing my own career dreams. I bounced around freelance jobs, part-time teaching gigs, did copywriting for businesses I didn't care about, all to make sure there was stability at home. I thought I was doing the right thing. Rachel, however, saw me as less and less of an equal as time went on. I could feel it in the way she talked to me, like I was a burden she had to manage, not a partner she could lean on. The final few years of our marriage were filled with small humiliations. Dismissive comments in front of her friends. Constant comparisons to her colleagues' husbands. One time, during an argument, she said, "I married a dreamer because I thought it was romantic. Turns out it's just exhausting." That one stung. Eventually, we separated when Maya was 13. Rachel painted it like I chose to leave. Truth is, she told me, plainly, that she didn't love me anymore and wanted someone more compatible with her vision. Those were her exact words. I didn't fight it. I had been dying a slow emotional death for years and just didn't realize it. I moved to another state, not far, just a few hours' drive, and Rachel promised we'd figure out a co-parenting plan. That promise dissolved as quickly as it came. At first, I'd call Maya weekly, send gifts, visit when I could. But Rachel slowly cut off my access. She said Maya was busy, then grounded, then out of town. Eventually, the calls stopped getting returned. My messages went unanswered. I didn't want to take legal action. I should have. But I was broke, ashamed, and afraid. I didn't want to drag Maya through court. I convinced myself it was better to stay in the background than become the messy dad that ruins everything. So I stayed silent. I told myself I'd wait until Maya was old enough to come find me herself. Years went by. I rebuilt slowly. I started my own independent news blog and podcast. Started small with maybe 12 listeners and 2 ad sponsors. But it was mine. I found a niche doing in-depth human interest stories, exposing small-town corruption, giving voice to people who'd been overlooked. Turns out there's an audience for that. A big one. The blog gained traction, then attention, then awards. The podcast got picked up by a regional media network. I started getting invited to conferences, panels, even universities to speak. Through it all, I still thought of Maya every single day. Every milestone, her 16th birthday, her high school graduation, her first year of college, I had to Google to find out where she went, passed without me. I sent letters, emails, even packages, knowing they probably never reached her. But I kept sending them anyway. And then, about 9 months ago, something happened I never expected. I got a message on Instagram. From Maya. It was short. Awkward. "Hey, I just found out you're alive?" I stared at that message for a long time. My heart didn't race. It dropped. And I suddenly realized just how far Rachel had gone to erase me from our daughter's life. Turns out, Maya had grown up believing I'd died in a car accident. That's what Rachel told her when she was 16. Apparently, she kept the lie vague and sad, just enough to keep Maya from asking questions. She even staged a fake grief phase, according to Maya. I don't even have the words for how twisted that is. I spent years blaming myself for not trying harder, not fighting more, and the entire time my ex had buried me 6 feet under in her narrative. Maya found out by accident. She had recently gotten engaged, and while wedding planning, one of her college friends, who happens to be a podcast fan, mentioned my name. Said, "Your dad has such a calming voice, I love his show." Maya had just nodded awkwardly, thinking it was some random coincidence. But curiosity led her down a rabbit hole, and by the time she realized what she'd found, she knew the truth. She messaged me that night. We talked for hours the next day. Tears. Anger. Confusion. More tears. She kept apologizing, and I kept telling her she had nothing to apologize for. Rachel had robbed us both. She had rewritten the story of my life for her own convenience. But what got me wasn't just the betrayal, it was how calm I felt underneath it all. Like my body had been holding a breath for 10 years, and now I could finally exhale. Maya invited me to her wedding. Without hesitation. She said, "I want you there, Dad. I don't care what anyone says." And that's when the next twist came. Rachel found out. She called me 2 days after Maya and I reconnected. No, hello. No, long time. Just, "So I hear you've inserted yourself back into Maya's life." I remember sitting in my office, the window cracked open, breeze moving through the curtains. My hands didn't shake. Not even a little. I said, "She found me, Rachel. Not the other way around." She scoffed. "You know this is going to cause chaos. She's emotional. She's young. She doesn't understand how complicated this all is. You told her I was dead." Silence. "You told our daughter I was dead, Rachel?" "I had to. You were unstable back then. You disappeared. I moved. You knew where I was. I did what was best for her." She tried to spin it like she was protecting Maya. That I would have disappointed her, let her down. That my presence would have confused her. The same woman who once claimed she married me for my passion now said that same passion made me unreliable. I let her talk until her words ran dry. Then I said, "I'll see Maya at her wedding." And I hung up. That was the first time I felt it, not anger, not revenge, but peace. Real, grounded peace. The kind that says, "I don't need your permission anymore." I never did. After I hung up on Rachel, I just sat there for a while, staring out the window. I wasn't triumphant. I wasn't even angry anymore. It felt like watching the credits roll on a movie I'd been stuck inside for too long. I remember I made myself a cup of coffee, sat down at my desk, and opened the last email Maya had sent. She'd attached childhood photos, ones I'd never seen. Her first school play. Her birthday party at 11. A blurry, goofy selfie of her at 16. And in every one of them, I was nowhere. I had existed in her world only as a story. A ghost. But now I was real again. Maya and I started talking every few days. It was cautious at first, like two people dusting off a long-abandoned bridge. She had questions. So many. About why I didn't fight harder, why I didn't show up at her school events, why I disappeared. I told her the truth, the real, ugly truth. That I was overwhelmed. That I thought staying out of the way was better than dragging her through a war. That I didn't have money for lawyers or the stomach for another fight with Rachel. That I convinced myself she'd hate me less if I just let go. She didn't cry, but I could hear the hurt in her breathing. "I used to talk to your picture," she said once. I'd say things like, "I hope you're proud of me." I thought I was talking to a dead man. That gutted me. But she never blamed me. Not once. She'd been lied to for years, and now, in the aftermath, all she wanted was the truth. That was more grace than I felt I deserved. As the wedding drew closer, Maya made it clear I was not only invited, I was wanted. She even asked me to walk her down the aisle, alongside her stepfather. That part caught me off guard. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Yeah," she said without hesitation. "He's been there. But now that I know you're alive, you're not my dad, you know? I want both of you there. It's my day." It was the most emotionally mature thing I'd ever heard from a 25-year-old. She wasn't trying to erase her stepdad. She wasn't even trying to punish Rachel. She just wanted something whole. But that wasn't something Rachel could allow. I got the email from her 2 weeks before the wedding. A long, cold, carefully constructed message titled, "Regarding Maya's wedding." She said she was deeply concerned about my reemergence and the confusion it's creating. She accused me of emotional manipulation, exploiting Maya's naivety, and endangering the peace that she had worked so hard to build. It was the most polished guilt trip I'd ever read. She ended it with, "I ask that you consider stepping back from the ceremony, out of respect for Maya's stability. She deserves a drama-free day. Please don't make this about you." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to Maya. "That was our agreement, complete honesty." She replied with just one line. "Guess who just got uninvited from my dress fitting?" I laughed harder than I had in years. A few days later, I got a phone call from someone I never expected to hear from, Rachel's mother, my former mother-in-law, Janice. We hadn't spoken in over a decade. She'd always been cold, formal, and slightly suspicious of me. But this time her voice was softer. "Michael," she said, "I just want you to know I'm sorry. For everything." I didn't know what to say. She continued, "I don't agree with what Rachel did. I didn't know the full extent. And now that Maya's bringing you back into her life, I hope you'll let her. I think she needs you." It was surreal. This woman who once judged me for not making six figures was now urging me to be a father again. Time is a strange thing. The day of the wedding came and I'll admit I was nervous. Not because of Rachel, I'd long stopped fearing her, but because I didn't want to cast a shadow over Maya's joy. She deserved light. The ceremony was in a vineyard. Golden hills in the background, rows of wildflowers, white tents billowing in the breeze. Maya looked radiant, not in the cheesy bridal magazine way, but in the way a woman looks when she knows exactly who she is. She had a quiet power in her presence that reminded me of her mother in the early days, but with something softer. Walking her down the aisle, standing beside her stepdad, was strange, but good. We shared a glance, a silent truce. Not for Rachel. For Maya. I caught Rachel watching me once during the reception. She was seated at a corner table, alone. Her second husband hadn't come, apparently they were taking space. She looked tired. Not in a tragic way. Just human. When Maya gave her speech, she didn't mention her parents. She talked about love and truth, and how sometimes the people who disappear aren't lost, just waiting to be found. I knew what she meant. And I think Rachel did too, because she got up and left before the cake. Later that night, Maya and I sat on the porch of her little honeymoon cottage. She was flying out the next morning and I was heading back home. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "I wish I'd found you sooner." I told her, "I was always here. I just didn't know how to reach you." She nodded and we sat in the quiet for a long time. I thought that was the end of it. But about a month later, I got one final message from Rachel. It wasn't long. Just a few lines. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. You were right. I went too far. I know an apology doesn't fix everything, but I am sorry. For lying. For keeping Maya from you. For making you feel like you weren't good enough. You didn't deserve that." She ended it with, "I hope you're doing well. I hear your podcast is excellent." I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't vindication. It wasn't closure. It wasn't even healing. But it was something. And honestly, I didn't need more than that. I didn't reply. Not out of spite. Just because there was nothing left to say. The thing people never tell you about being wronged is how little it actually matters once you finally get your peace back. I used to fantasize about what I'd say to Rachel if I ever had the chance. I'd imagine some cutting speech that left her stunned, speechless, shattered by the weight of her own choices. But when that moment came, when she finally admitted what she did, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt done. After I got her message, I sat with it for a full day. Reread it a couple of times. There were no excuses in it, no blame shifting, and that, in itself, meant something. But by then, I had no need for an apology. It was like being offered a seat in a theater after the movie ended, too late to matter. Maya and I kept building something real. It wasn't always easy. There were landmines, moments when a certain memory or question would suddenly yank us backward. Like the first time she showed me a childhood photo album Rachel had made. There was a page labeled, "Daddy's in Heaven." It had a picture of a cloud and a paper-cut heart. Maya had glued a letter she wrote at 16 to the stars. I didn't cry. She did. We held hands for a long time. Then we closed the album and put it away. Grief over someone who was never dead is its own weird category of pain. And healing it takes time. She came to visit me for a full week that fall. Just the two of us. We went to the lake, watched old black and white films, made pasta from scratch, badly. I showed her the studio where I recorded the podcast, introduced her to my audio editor and the retired journalist who mentored me. She sat in on one of my interviews with a whistleblower from a small-town school board scandal, eyes wide, fascinated, sharp. "You're really good at this," she said on the car ride home. "Thanks," I said. Took me a while to figure it out. She looked at me and said, "No, I mean you're really good." Like, I get it now. She told me that growing up, Rachel had always said I was lost potential. That I had good ideas but no follow-through. That I was unstable, erratic, flaky. And that for a long time, Maya believed her, not because Rachel said it with hate but because she said it with authority. "You were like a cautionary tale," Maya told me. And now, sitting in a car with me, seeing what I built, hearing my voice in the world, she realized the truth. I wasn't lost potential. I was just buried under someone else's version of me. That hit harder than anything else. She asked me if I'd ever go back and try to clear my name, sue for parental alienation, write about what happened, expose it all. I told her no. That the best revenge, if you can call it that, was living a life that didn't require anyone's validation. I didn't need to prove Rachel wrong. I just had to keep proving myself right. A few weeks after her visit, Maya sent me a link. Rachel had given a speech at a legal seminar about navigating high-conflict co-parenting situations. It was recorded and posted online. I watched about 5 minutes of it, enough to see her polished, controlled lawyer self, talking about the importance of honesty and fairness in custody battles. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even roll my eyes. People lie to survive themselves. That's something I've come to understand. Rachel didn't erase me out of sheer malice, at least not entirely. She erased me because admitting she'd chosen the wrong partner, or handled the divorce badly, or failed to be honest with our daughter, would have forced her to confront a version of herself she couldn't bear. I was a casualty of her self-preservation. And maybe that's the saddest part, not the betrayal itself, but the fact that she'll probably never be free of the version of herself that needed to rewrite me into a ghost. For my part, I didn't need to hold on to it anymore. I built a new home. Literally and metaphorically. I bought a small fixer-upper near the mountains and spent months renovating it with my own 2 hands. No contractors. Just sweat, splinters, and a stubborn will to reclaim something. Maya visited again the following spring, this time with her husband. We grilled steaks, played cards, talked about the podcast episode she liked best. Her husband, Ethan, told me he thought Maya was the wisest person he knew. She's got this calm fire, he said. You know what I mean? I smiled and said, I do. Before they left, she pulled me aside. I told Mom she needs to stop contacting you, she said quietly. Not because I want to protect you, I know you don't need that. But because I want her to understand that she doesn't get to insert herself back into a story she tried to delete. That meant a lot. Rachel did try a few more times to reach out. A Christmas card. A forwarded article she thought I'd like. Once, even an invite to a fundraiser gala she was hosting. I never responded. Not out of cruelty. Just clarity. I didn't hate her anymore. But I no longer had space for people who only acknowledge your value once the world does too. There's a difference between remorse and regret. One is about you. The other is about them. And I'd had enough of being someone's regret. So here I am now, sitting on my porch, laptop open, telling this story. Not for pity. Not for applause. Just because for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can say it without shaking. I lost years. I lost moments. I lost a relationship with my daughter that should have never been taken from me. But I didn't lose myself. That's what I've learned. When someone tries to erase you, the most powerful thing you can do is keep showing up. For yourself. Quietly. Steadily. Relentlessly. Even if no one claps. Even if no one believes you. Because eventually the truth finds its way. And when it does, you don't need to shout. You just nod and say, I was here the whole time.